Okay, League games again. This time I'm only going to be talking about my game against WKSP, which you may recall as a long opening and in which the Soviet forces have collapsed. The logistics of getting everybody into position after the Soviet collapse for an attack on the Western forces are quite considerable. Even if you leave breaking appeasement to the last possible minute in June, which is a good idea because it delays the USA's entry as long as possible, you still need to get everything into position between collapsing the Soviets in January and the beginning of Western entry in just 4 or 5 months. There are 6 or 7 fronts to manage, and all of them require choices. It takes almost your entire production capacity of the Axis to move the troops from the Eastern Front to the Western and to repair their air forces ready for the attack. The main objective is northern France, but you need to get the German convoy to the Med via Tangiers. While there's no interference from the British, get German troops to the 2 African fronts, Spain and French Syria. Have I mentioned already how technical play in the long opening is? This is a really good example. The intent I had was to deliver a knockout blow to the Dutch and Belgians, but I messed it up. To do this, you need to declare war in January, just before collapsing the USSR. If you wait until the Moscow Treaty is in effect, there's a 50-50 chance for each nation joining the Western or the Soviet faction, rather than, if only the Soviets are in the war, joining the Soviet faction and preventing them from being supported by the Allies. In June, I managed to actually miss the Basra front, which is a bit of an oversight, slightly annoying. I make no progress on the Turkish front, but I am threatening to encircle the Allied position because I strategic moved a Turkish unit from up in Turkish territory to east of Damascus. Worth just stopping for a question here. What's the best attack option against Aleppo? A combined assault or a series of mobile attacks? Feel free to pause the video and have a think about it. The odds of success if you conduct an assault are 19 and 36. Remember, in this situation, all you need against a garrison is a DR to eliminate a unit that doesn't have a retreat. The odds are just 1 in 6 if conducted as a mobile attack. Now, if you could just get 3 mobile attacks, then recalling our 5 and 6 indices, that's 125 and 216 of none of the attacks succeeding, or 91 and 216 of at least one doing so, clearly inferior to the 19 and 36 of a single massed assault. However, 4 mobile attacks would be 625 and 1296, which is 671 and 1296 of success, compared to 686 and 1296 for the combined assaults. So that makes it fairly close, but with 4 combined attacks, you're better off launching them as separate mobile attacks. You've got a slightly better chance overall of taking the city, and you've always got that chance that you take it on the very first of those attacks. I get a lucky result on the French front. The Belgians blow up and produce a no enemy zone of control, allows a German unit to get to a position northwest of Lille, which threatens the British retreat. Once I clear Sedan, which took 5 attacks, but fortunately I got a DR followed by a DD, and that allowed me to push units through the gap and attack Lille. I used the paratroops for the attack because shifting the British will create a dramatic hole in the line. France can pose serious difficulties to the German army in the long opening, but the relatively low unit density means that if Spain is in play, you only need a single bad break for the Allied lines to collapse. Supply matters in the Med. This escorted convoy has 2 potential interceptors, so even a failed attack will put 2 sorties on the escort. I'm protected a little bit by poor weather in the warm zone, but I'm going to struggle with supply in Africa. To assist, I wait for the UK supply phase and hit Force H as it makes its run to try and exhaust it in order to get my convoy through on future turns. WKSP gets the front line back together in France, but it's pretty weak. I break through in July in the Middle East at Aleppo. Why not attack the Jerusalem garrison afterwards? Simple, I gain nothing by it, and I'd run a risk of attacker attrition against my garrison, which would undermine my position. I can take the outer supply garrison easily next turn. North of France is tough. Once you have Calais, you need to take Paris. That is a lot easier if you can encircle it, and I didn't quite have the movement points to do that last turn. I can do it from the south at the risk of a supply trap if I dislodge the guard unit. I can do it from the west if I can dislodge the French armour, but I have limited air power to support this. The French line did collapse under the pressure, leading to a near total collapse in France. The French will be conquered in August, which means the focus now switches to the Med. In Africa, I get a very good result. Double DD, eliminating the Western Defence Force and opening the route to Egypt. In August, I strategic move a unit to Kuwait, as that is still a holdout location for the Allies. I do then make a silly error in Egypt, which is worth drawing attention to because it is a sequencing issue. A lot of the tactical play in unconditional surrender rests on sequencing. Take actions in a particular order and it significantly improves your position. In this case, I should have taken out the British garrison and then seized Port Said as the first action. That would prevent movement through the Suez Canal, which would mean the British fleet at Alexandria could not retreat to support the forces in Kuwait. Gibraltar captures to an air-supported assault by German forces. I've talked about getting a non-garrison unit into Gibraltar. If you can hold the fort, you can prevent a full Med lock. So it's worth the expenditure in these sorts of situations of getting the WDF or the British Expeditionary Force into the fort. They should be able to hold out. August ends with an Axis activation of Ireland. This is not unusual in long games because the unlimited success for the conquest of France is not needed for Spain or Turkey. As it does in this case, it usually allows an unopposed Irish army to seize Belfast and gives a landing point to support a full-scale Sea Lion. Oh, I also managed to find the production points to buy the surprise marker back. In September, I capture Casablanca. The rest of Africa will fall quickly, and I will have a full Med lock before the end of the year. And by the end of January 43, I'm landing in the UK. German troops fighting out of Belfast get over the strait to threaten Glasgow. A landing goes in at Liverpool, which is an undefended port, and an airborne attack is used to seize an extra port at Cardiff. No, you can't reach Cardiff from outside England, so it looks like it's a port you can leave undefended, but once you are ashore at Liverpool, a fighter can fly into that location and then permit the air landing into Cardiff. The Luftwaffe operating off the French coast have suppressed the RAF and the British naval capability, and this is the final touch of a long opening. Made possible by the capture of Gibraltar, which allows the Italian fleet to support the landing. The UK is on just 2 national will. They fall in the few months of fighting, and that moves me as the Axis to 99 points of national will, as good as you are actually allowed to be in the game. So, just a short one this time, going through that final western bit of the long opening. For now, here endeth the lesson.